there's dramatic land transformations, changes in how the land is being used. So in rural areas, there are very large oil palm plantations and other kinds of crops that have to be located in space where people have been farming or living for many generations. And in the urban areas, there is very large commercial projects being built, particularly in the large cities like Jakarta and Surabaya. And the only land to build these on is land where residents are living in kampungs, for example. So we're interested in trying to understand what happens when these changes occur. What does it mean for the people who used to live in these spaces? How do they adapt? What opportunities does it create? What disadvantages are as they have to be displaced? So that's why we titled the conference Land, Livelihoods and Displacement, because it's asking the question, what happens to the land and the people after these land use changes happen and they have to or choose to move. And beyond that, when we started to look at the scholarship, we saw there were one group of people looking at these issues in rural areas, another group in urban areas, and these two groups weren't really comparing notes about similarities and differences. So the purpose of the conference was really to try and bring the rural and urban scholars together for the first time and have them talk with one another. And as far as we know, this is not just an issue in Indonesia, but in many other countries, research tends to be divided into urban and rural. And so we've spent the last 2 days trying to bring these groups together.
I would add to that, is this question also, in a way, on the one hand, it's sort of trying to compare notes. What are some of the transformations which occur? What are its impact on people and the environment? But then also, how can you actually address some of the problems associated, the negative effects of these transformations on people and the environment? And here, so that we had people talking about issues of laws, what kinds of laws facilitate or actually constitute sort of an obstacle, or actually what kinds of laws exist, what kinds of laws would need to be enacted in order to try actually to protect the environment and protect people who actually have been living there before. Also questions about how should people be compensated for being actually sort of pushed off the land. This is often the case. And then there's also this question about actually what happens actually to people who are leaving the land and are pushed off the land. So these are all questions which we have been addressing, and we had scholars from all over the world really contributing to sort of knowledge to these issues. And tomorrow we'll be coming together to discuss this issue about where do we go from here. And I think also I should mention we have here scholars who both scholars from universities, scholars who work in government, and scholars who are activists who work in NGOs. So you have actually different sort of different groups of people and different knowledges coming together and bringing it together and comparing notes. And basically what we're trying to do tomorrow is figure out what are some of the most important issues, which need to be investigated and addressed in the near future. And what can different sort of sectors of society actually contribute to actually helping find solutions to some of the problems we have identified.
I hope that by bringing together scholars working in rural and urban areas, we can understand how often changes happening in rural areas affect what happens in the cities, and changes in the cities affect how land is being cleared in rural areas, so that we can really look at the relationships between urban and rural land use changes and try and understand not just the local factors and forces and political pressures that exist, but also the much larger scale processes that are shaping this at the national scale and also at the global scale. So we can put those local changes into a much larger context and understand them.
Presentasi saya hari ini kebetulan saya membantu tim kerja reforma agraria di kantor staf presiden tentang fase persiapan daripada reforma agraria yang akan dijalankan oleh pemerintah dimulai dari tahun 2017 dengan target 9 juta hektar kepada petani-petani tak berlahan maupun mengembalikan hak-hak tanah termasuk tanah adat masyarakat yang telah hilang di masa lalu. Itu kira-kira topik yang saya bawakan. Tapi konferensi kita hari ini selama 3 hari ini banyak berbicara permasalahan-permasalahan yang ada di pedesaan maupun di perkotaan berkaitan dengan hak-hak masyarakat, displacement atau pengusiran yang terjadi, maupun usaha-usaha untuk koreksi. Saya melihat pemerintahan sekarang memasukkan itu dalam rencana kerjanya, dan hal itu tentu menjadi janji kepada rakyat yang perlu dipenuhi. Kita semua sadar itu harus tugas berat yang harus kita coba bantu untuk dapat diwujudkan. Reformasi agraria punya tahapan-tahapan yang cukup ketat kalau secara teori. Pertama ada pendataan tentang siapa itu landless atau siapa itu masyarakat yang tidak bertanah atau mendekati habis tanahnya. Sementara data Gini koefisien kita menurut sensus 2013 menyatakan 0,59, yang artinya akut kondisinya, kondisi ketimpangan, terutama ketimpangan pemilikan tanah di pedesaan yang begitu timpang. Data ini bukan hanya bisa kita bicara dalam skala nasional, tapi sudah harus pada level lapangan, di mana itu dan siapa adalah beneficiary-nya atau penerima daripada reforma agraria. Tidak bisa berhenti di situ. Persiapan selanjutnya adalah siapa yang akan mendampingi mereka mengembangkan kelembagaannya. Jadi paling tidak ada 5 hal. Yang pertama, pendataan adalah konflik yang ada, kepastian hak yang akan diberikan, kelembagaan, kemudian pemasaran, produksi, penataan produksi, dan pemasaran. Ini 5 hal kunci yang kalau kita lihat itu dilakukan oleh kementerian-kementerian yang berbeda, yang perlu diatur, tentunya Pemda dan keterlibatan masyarakat sipil.
We actually call it the Jakarta Collective. We're really trying to really also enroll students, graduate students as well as undergraduate students in this project. And actually there's a lot of interest on part of students, more than we would have ever expected. And even students who are not from Indonesia. So we have an undergraduate student from Thailand, an undergraduate student from the United States, who actually want to work with us on this project. I don't think we mentioned it yet, what this project is. Eric and I, together with 2 scholars from the University of Minnesota, just received a big grant from the National Science Foundation to actually investigate questions of land transformation in urban areas, actually specifically in Jakarta, and also in Bangalore, India. And the idea is also through this comparison, we can perhaps, these 2 places also can learn from each other. We can learn how things are done differently in these 2 places, but also how can these 2 places perhaps learn from each other in terms of addressing some of the negative effects, in particular of large-scale land transformations.
So it's very important to both the conference and to the research we're doing that it equally involves people who are experts in Indonesia with scholars from outside. So as we were talking about before, you get both the inside and the outside perspective on these processes, and you really draw on the local knowledge, even of the residents themselves, as they're trying to think about what's happening, so that you have a much richer sense of what's going on, a deeper understanding. So it's very central to what we're doing, is really making sure that Indonesians are involved in this research as much as us working from the United States.